Good morning, everyone. Like Mr. Quinn, I used to routinely ask friends of the school to address Petty on Founders Day. But until I was asked to address all of you, I didn't fully appreciate them or the fact that Founders Day is celebrated on February 12th in the dark of winter and today on a Monday, no less. In short, I have a pretty good idea where you are at this moment. And as a result, I am grateful to you for giving me a few minutes of your attention this morning. So, Founders Day. What's the point? Or the purpose? Mr. Quinn gave you and previewed some of what we think about when we get together, gather on this particular day. What might make it just a little bit different than your average Monday morning chapel? Why? Why does Petty take the time to acknowledge it, other than perhaps as a chance to bring your attention to our namesake, Thomas B. Petty, who, as Mr. Quinn suggested, and not unimportantly, did save the school you now attend at a time when it was in great debt and at risk of closing. Why else, though, does Petty choose to acknowledge Founders Day? I would suggest that Founders Day is about more than Thomas B. Petty's legacy, but it is about legacy. Yes, Founders Day serves to remind us of those names on Petty's proverbial Mount Rushmore: Annenberg, Casperson, Armolino, with Ann Seltzer, who is here, whose name is on some of your t-shirts, and whose portrait will hang from one of these walls someday. But Founders Day is also about so many others whose contributions of all kinds to Petty and through Petty to you exist to this moment. Founders Day is about their potential legacy too, and the impact that legacy can have on those who will one day be gathered in this chapel long after they leave campus or graduate. You know, in thinking about Founders Day recently, I've begun to believe that maybe there's a relationship or a spiritual connection of some sort between the fact that Founders Day is celebrated on February 12th, only 2 days before Valentine's Day on February 14th. What? You ask? Founders Day and Valentine's Day, you are getting carried away now, aren't you? Okay, I may be reaching some, but perhaps not. Let me explain. Over 23 years ago, I was the new head of school. I was attending a welcome dinner with trustees, faculty, and friends of the school. While I remember the dinner as pleasant enough, I will always recall one particular experience. Members of the search committee, Mr. Korka, Ms. Seltzer, responsible for hiring me, were each asked to say a few words about what they hoped for Petty under my leadership. They were kind, but it was daunting. I distinctly remember the moment the board chair, Finn Casperson, a larger-than-life figure, and that same Casperson, whose name is etched on buildings you pass by every day, approached the podium. And he said, "What I hope for John is that one day John will come to love our school as much as I do." To be honest, I was a little intimidated by Mr. Casperson's stature and status, and wondered to myself there that night, how was I ever going to measure up to his legacy? After all, I was young and brand new, not too different from you all sitting up in the balcony. Yes, I can still see you from here. Needless to say, Mr. Casperson was not young or new. Anyway, I had expected and feared that Mr. Casperson would share his vision, set his direction, or perhaps reference all the necessary improvements that were on his mind. But no, instead, what I hope for John is that one day John will come to love the school as much as I do. Even prior to that night, I was aware that I was given the privilege to lead one of the great schools in this country in every way that should count. And I knew all things Petty, the outstanding faculty, staff, students, programs, facilities, campus, and even the spirit here. There is at least a little Alla Viva in all of you by now, I hope. Even the spirit here are a product of those who had come before us. Those whose learning experiences at Petty were so transformational that they were determined to see the school prosper after they had departed campus and aspired for these same experiences to be available to future generations, including yours. That stipulated, I'll go even further and emphasize that none of your experience at Petty, none of it exists, but for the fact that Petty counts among it many who love the school and as a result made Petty so. And none of it is guaranteed going forward. Yes, Founders Day is a day to celebrate those whose names are memorialized on buildings. Did you know, though, that the building you will see to your left when you leave the chapel is called Coates Coleman? Did you know that Coates Coleman is not one hyphenated last name, but two distinct last names? Did you know that Coates Coleman is a story not about a building or donation, but about friendship, a bond formed between two at and over Petty in 1928, a Petty benefactor who refused to leave his friend's name off the new building. But Founders Day is also a day to remind ourselves of the names and contributions of those who are less famous, but loved your school no less. Walk this campus, and you will see their names and expressions of their love too. On plaques adjacent to trees, for example, on the benches on which you sit, on brick steps that connect the upper campus to the lower campus, and even on a baseball dugout. There are countless other physical manifestations of love and legacy all across the campus, inside and outside. Slow down. Take a note. There is a compelling story, too, about each of these people. You should get to know them. You would, I think, be inspired by and perhaps appreciate their concern for you. There are also Petty teachers who are sitting behind me now, Petty staff who labor on your behalf behind the scenes, some of whom have done so for decades. And even some students among you who already love your school and want the very best for it and for you. They're not memorialized on this campus anywhere at all. But their current contributions are deeply embedded in the experience from which you benefit and in the fabric of this community in which you learn and live. You might take the time to thank them for that. Look, I know that Petty is not a panacea. Or as a ninth grade student said to me many years ago, Petty is not a pancreas. It will never be a perfect place, though it should always strive to be so. No, Petty evolves, much as your relationship with Petty will also evolve, wax and wane over the course of your lives. Some of you love the school now, and some of you, well, not yet. And some of you may never. Be that as it may, what I do know for sure is that few of you will ever know a period in your life during which you will experience greater intellectual and personal growth than while at Petty. And I do know for sure that few of you will never find a college, a university, a club, a company, or a village where you will be better known, make better friends, or be better cared for than while at Petty. Of that, I'm absolutely certain. So back to the beginning. What is Founders Day? What is the point or the purpose? Founders Day is a day of celebration of our school's history, progress, and growth. A day of gratitude to all those whose very legacy is responsible for it. And a day of reflection on our good fortune to be here and our contemplation of the role that some of us will elect to play in our ongoing and meaningful Petty story. It will, after all, be your turn one day. With a wave to Miss Loughran's past address at a baccalaureate, I'll conclude my remarks by reminding you that there is a line in our school's alma mater, if I recall correctly, that reads, "When evening falls and Petty calls, we all will come to thee." Do you know it? Well, I have decided that it is not entirely coincidental that I have come to thee on Founders Day to say to you now, what I hope for all of you is that one day you will come to love our school as much as I do. Thank you.